think the moral of the story is that if you neglect a subject, every day that goes by, it becomes harder and harder to catch up. The Mother says that concerning learning Torah, im ta'azvenu yoim, if you neglect it for one day, yomayim ta'azveka, it will elude you for 2 days. Now it just gets worse. So now there's so much catch-up to do that it's a huge task. And that's why no one answer is going to solve the problem. Because there's so much background information missing. So every day that we let go by, it'll just get worse and worse. So it's not an easy, one-liner answer, but there's so much wisdom there, it would be a crime to not share it and to not have people appreciate it and so on. So there's the chukim of Torah. I don't mean the individual chukim, but the chukim side of Torah, that if it's Torah, it's emes, and if it's emes, you do it. Not you're not allowed to ask. There's no need to ask. If this is emes, what more do you want? But then there's also the chachma of Torah, which is just as valid, just as important, just as holy. So it seems like today people are more motivated by the chachma of Torah than by the emes, which is fine. That's why Torah has both. But it is a little uncomfortable when people say, if I don't understand it, I don't do it. Because first of all, it's not honest. Most of the things you do, you have no idea what you're doing. And you don't stop and demand explanations. You go. You get onto an elevator, you go up, you go down. How does it work? Why does it work? You don't care. So to say, I don't do things I don't understand, yes, you do, all the time. Like, for example, you got married. You have no idea what you're doing, right? Or why you're doing it. So that should not be encouraged. So that's why no matter how good the Rebbe's explanation on a subject was, he would first say, just because you don't understand doesn't mean you're free not to do it. Because that gives you a little bit of a humility and a little bit of a grounding in reality. So if you're not a big philosopher, philosophy is not going to work for you. And most people are not big philosophers. So realistically, you can't live your life waiting for explanations. Doesn't work. Okay. Now, what is the explanation? So the first thing, most fundamental, you're talking about a woman covering her hair, going to a mikveh, the intimacy between husband and wife. Well, the first basic fundamental question would be the klotz kasha. What's a woman? That's it. We already don't know. We're already stumped. What's a woman? What does it mean to be a woman? Don't ask people today in the street. They are so confused that they've come to the conclusion that there is no such thing. There's no such thing as a woman. It's just a feeling, it's an opinion. You see, that's how horrible the conditions have become. What's a man? Nobody knows. But everybody comes crying. Why does a man do this and a woman does that? You know what a man is? No. You know what a woman is? No. So, what's your question? don't know if you heard this. I said something about tradition being doing what your grandfather did, what his grandfather did. That's called tradition. And this Reform rabbi said, why do you ignore half the population? Why did you say grandfather? Why didn't you say grandmother? So I said, you're so behind the times. My grandfather was a woman. How dare you assume just because... that's how disturbed... And he had no answer. He was embarrassed. Right, I made a mistake. So the only place that you're going to get any wisdom on this subject is in the Torah. There's no place else. There's no competition even. What does the Torah say? The Torah says that a man is a mashpia and a woman is a mekabel. That is an indispensable little piece of information. What's a mashpia and what is a mekabel? The Eibishter created the world in a system of light and vessel. The light gives existence, the vessel forms the existence. When light doesn't match the vessel, you have chaos, you have destruction. Shviras hakelim. What was Shviras hakelim? Too much light, not enough vessel. Which means the light did not fit the vessel. So, there was destruction. In the 6 days of creation, what really happened was the things that existed started to work in an orderly fashion. Because where does it say that the Eibishter said there should be an earth? No place. Where does it say the Eibishter said there should be water? Doesn't say. It says, Bereshis, there was earth that was covered with water, and it was dark and chaotic. So everything already existed on the first day of creation, but it was a mess. That when the Eibishter said, Yehi Oir, he was starting to organize and make everything work. How does it work? If the light fits the keli. If the light fits the vessel, then the vessel becomes stronger, and it gives the light more direction and purpose, and everything works well. And that's called Olam HaTikun. That's an orderly world. In every marriage, you're bringing together a light and a vessel, and if they work together, you're creating a world. And if they don't work together, you're destroying each other. So, what is the nature of a mashpia, and what is the nature of a mekabel, of a keli? You know any of this? You've heard the tapes online? Huh? Huh? A mashpia is a giver, and a keli is a receiver. So between husband and wife, in a marriage, there's a giving and there's a receiving. Not a giving and a taking, because taking is violence. Taking is abuse. There's no taking. You don't take a person. You either give or you receive. A giver is the mashpia, the receiver is the mekabel. So let's use a moshel of a teacher and a student. The teacher is the giver, the student is the receiver. Who's more important?
Well,
The teacher or the student?
for that one, you don't have the other.
That's a technical truth, but who's more important?
Well, the student is the object.
Huh?
The student is the objective.
We pay teachers to teach the student, so who's more important? The student. Who gets all the covet? The teacher.
That's right.
So a teacher is a giver, a mashpia, and a student is the mekabel. So there are a few rules to being a teacher. We're talking about the ideal teacher. The ideal teacher is somebody whose life is devoted to teaching. It's not his 9 to 5. Then he's just a guy with a job. A real giver, a real teacher, is a person whose entire life is devoted to teaching. What motivates him? Why does he want to teach? Because he feels the desperation of the student. And it bothers him. So he dedicates himself to fulfilling that need and for satisfying that hunger. Which obviously means he knows what the student needs to hear. So a guy has a job, he's a professor, he comes into the hall, he delivers his speech on a subject that nobody's interested in, he doesn't care, he gets paid at the end of the week anyway. That's not a teacher, it's not a giver, it's nothing. It's a user. He's using people to make a living. It goes so far, if you want to use an example, a wife complained that her husband ignores her, never listens to her, and she's not important to him. Painful. You talk to the husband says, the lady's crazy. I am the best husband you could possibly have. Last week she asked me to bring home a flower for the dining room table. I brought home a dozen. She wanted to go for a weekend, take a break from a vacation. I booked a 3-week cruise. On and on and on like that. He said, I don't listen. I'm not a good husband. And she turns to me and says, you see? She asks for a rose, he brings a dozen. You would think she would be thrilled. She's not, she's miserable. Because he doesn't give to her. He gives what he wants to give. It's insulting. It's painful. It's almost like he says, without having to put it into words, a flower, one flower, what are you, crazy? One flower is stupid. Dozen. And now he thinks he's a wonderful husband. He gave her a dozen flowers. So he thinks he's a giver. He's not. He's an abuser. So a real giver knows what is needed, feels the need, and fulfills it. Yeah? Torah says that when Adam and Chava were sent out of Gan Eden, Chava was cursed that she will yearn for her husband. That yearning is what a real giver feels. And he responds to that yearning. So what's more important? The student or the teacher? The only reason the teacher exists is because he feels the student's hunger. If there was no hunger, there'd be no such thing as a giver. In other words, without the hunger, you won't have a teacher walking around looking for someone to teach. Because if nobody needs, then there is no response to that need, so there is no teacher. So without men, there would be women. Very frustrated women. But without women, there'd be no men. Tell me if it's not making sense. We want to accomplish something here tonight.
The men need the woman to need them.
Yes.
How did you figure that
I
out?
know, that was quick.
Huh?
No, how did you figure that out as a rabbi, as a man?
I have a wife. She told me.
Although Adam came first.
Adam came first, and the Eibishter said, Leitev.
Why didn't men come before a woman?
Huh?
Why didn't men come before a woman? I'm just curious. Like, what's
Why?
if the giver needs the receiver, then how could a giver be created first before the receiver? If the giver needs always a gift too.
It's an excellent question, and you can ask it about everything. Why did light come before trees? When there are no trees, what do you need light for?
Yes. Well, if the trees come first, then they wouldn't exist. They wouldn't grow. Like if man was put on an earth without earth, then they would just drown.
Okay, so you see that the whole creation is backwards. From the less important to the more important. Right? And the moral of it was, the Eibishter is creating the whole world ready for you to do what you need to do. And that includes men. Right?
It takes 20 years to get married, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like if they're good.
It doesn't take 20 years to get married. It takes 20 years to grow up, whether you're married or not. So, why did Adam name her Chava? Yeah, what does Chava mean? Aim. Kol Chai. And he, of course, is Av Kol Chai. No. He's from the Adama. Come on, is this fair? He names her the mother of every life, and he is from the Adama. Pretty humble guy. But it's so true. Without her, he's not a man. She is his life. So it's not like there's a man and he is the masculine source of life, and then there's a woman and she's the feminine source of life. No. She is the source of all life, including him. Which is a very interesting little fact in nature. Women give birth to boys. How weird is that?
Give birth to what?
To boys. You would think you should be divided. Women should give birth to girls. Men should give birth to boys. Then we would have true equality.
We'd have an uneven population. It would just be women.
Yep. So men are not reliable.
No, they just wouldn't be able to handle it.
So,
Isn't women more physical? Just
huh?
men are Adama, like Adam, and then women are generally more physical.
More physical?
See, that's what I think. Men are generally, the woman generally like develops into the physicality.
And men are spiritual, more like the learning and.
No, I'm just thinking, like, I just think the man is a mashpia and then the woman develops what the man gives. So it's more working with the physical more than the hunter or the captain. I think. It's just interesting how it's seemingly you would think it's the opposite. The woman is more physical, she brings the spirituality.
This is true because in the heavenly worlds, the Keli is more physical than the Oir. And that's why it gives the Oir, it gives the light a shape, a character, and makes it productive. Otherwise it would just... So, to be a mashpia, let's get this straight. To be a mashpia means you are sensitive to the needs of the mekabel. And this is so real. I mean, you know, if you're a teacher, you know this. You walk into a classroom and none of the kids want to hear what you have to say. It destroys you. You become dumb. You can't think straight. You can't put together a sentence. But imagine a classroom where 10 out of the 30 students really want to know, and they ask you a serious question they want to understand. All of a sudden, you're brilliant. It's true. Your answers, your understanding, your brilliance comes from the hunger. That's what a real teacher is. So, you can tell students, you're bored in class, it's your fault. It's your fault. Teacher's stupid, she doesn't know. It's your fault. You walk into the classroom and really want to understand, your teacher is suddenly going to be brilliant. So the student makes the teacher. Because a real giver is inspired by a student's need. So the Rebbe once said to the doctor that Tzimtzum, how did Eibishter create the world? He left an empty space, and into that empty space, he created the world. The Rebbe said, what's an empty space? An empty space is a vacuum. It's not a nothing. When there's a space that is empty, it becomes a vacuum. It draws the light. It becomes irresistible. So now we have a definition for what a woman is. What's a woman? Irresistible. What does a woman do? Nothing. You don't have to do anything to be a woman.
Or to be irresistible.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything for that.
You just are.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why they use us in ads. That's another topic, but I just wanted to mention that.
Very important. Remind me about that.
Advertisement, they use us for advertising, they use us for everything.
Huh?
You said that a woman is a creation that's in a state of longing. So that's different from irresistible. Longing is something that she's doing as opposed to...
That's why she's irresistible. Okay, right? That's what you're saying.
Her
She's like an empty
longing,
space that she wants, like, she just wants to...
yeah. Her longing, her hunger for her husband is irresistible to the husband.
magnetic.
Magnetic. Good word.
There's a tension of the two-way.
Huh?
There's a two-way tension here.
Why? He's irresistible to her?
No, because longing is a little inconsistent with being that's really another direction.
She could be.
To be irresistible means that you're an object of being irresistible. Longing means you are longing for someone else.
To be yearned for is irresistible. Like in the old, the classic, a damsel in distress. What's a damsel? A dazzling woman. That is like the ultimate, what motivates a man? A woman in distress. But in the Goyish world, a woman in distress means the dragon has her captive in the cellar of the palace or something. You don't have to go there. A woman is in distress by her very nature. And that is irresistible to a man. Irresistible because if no one was in distress, everyone would be a woman. Right? There'd be no men. A man is a reaction to that distress.
So with a certain submission.
So the Medrash says it interestingly. The Medrash says Chava was punished, cursed, that she's going to yearn for her husband. What is the curse? What's wrong with yearning for a husband? If you yearn for a husband, you're the desperate one. You got to go find a husband. So the Medrash says, yeah, but look what happened. Women don't go looking for husbands. Men found out that women yearn for a husband, so every man runs looking for a woman. So it sounds like a joke, and a good joke, but the Medrash is serious. What the Eibishter did by making a woman yearn for her husband, he made husbands desperate for a wife, because it's irresistible. So it turns out men are the aggressors. They go looking for a wife. They marry. They give the ring. They take a wife. So they get all the attention.
Because we're that precious that they need to take it.
Yeah, can't be without. So on the surface, it looks like they're doing everything. Guy wakes up, he says, okay, I need a wife. He goes out, he finds a wife, he marries her, builds a house. Yeah, he's doing everything. She, nothing. The whole dance between men and women starts with the women. But the women don't say anything, don't do anything. They just sit there being irresistible and laugh all the way to the bank. And they tell the men that they're so important. There are men who are sensitive to a woman's need, but they don't have the courage or the confidence that they can satisfy that need. That's not a healthy giver. There are men who are very confident. I can take care of anything. I can provide everything, but I don't really want to. Solve your own problems. Leave me alone. So to be a real man, you have to have these two qualities. Number one, you have to be really sensitive. What does she want or need? And number two, if that's what she needs, get it. Provide it. Make it happen. See, that's the opposite of a dictator. A guy who thinks he's the boss in the house and he can dictate means he's not a giver. So I'll tell you a quick story if you're not in a hurry. A couple came to see me in Minnesota from another city. They were having a serious problem because she went out of town. She came back and she saw evidence that there had been a woman in the bedroom. She confronted him. He said nothing. Nothing happened. She's devastated. So they came to talk. To make a long story short, she kept saying, I forgive him. I really do. I forgive him. But now I'm so insecure. I can't trust him. So what happened, fine, I forgive him. But what else could happen? That was her problem. So I turned to the husband. I said, did you hear what your wife just said? He says, yeah, she's angry. I said, you didn't hear anything. Did you hear how many times she said, I forgive you? Why is she saying that? You hear that she's angry. She keeps saying, I forgive you. You're not listening. I said, if I were objective, I didn't even know that you had a problem in your marriage, I'm just listening to her. And she said, I forgive him, but I'm so insecure about what's going to happen next. I'll tell you what I'm hearing. She sounds like an ugly duckling. You know the story with the ugly duckling? A baby swan got separated from his family, ended up among the ducks. Doesn't look like a duck. So he felt really inferior that he was an ugly duck, when in fact he was a beautiful swan. So that's the classical story of the ugly duckling. I said, she sounds like an ugly duckling. She forgives you because she knows it's her fault. But she can't stand the uncertainty, which is not your fault. It's her problem. She doesn't think she deserves any better. Otherwise, why is she forgiving you? You didn't even ask for forgiveness. I was saying this to the husband. The wife went hysterical. Way overreacting. She calms down finally and she says to him, I'm so sorry. She says, I'm so sorry. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Jewish. They married 9 years. We were both pretty shocked. What are you saying? You come from a wonderful Jewish family. Everybody knows your family. She says, I'm adopted. Ugly duckling? So now the whole subject changed. So, excuse me, your parents are very frum people. If they adopted you, they converted you. She says, yeah, but a convert is not a real Jew. Whoa. Anyway, aside from, I turned to the husband. I say, you've been living with her for 9 years. You never suspected anything. She's living with such tension. She's living with such agony, keeping the secret. And you never noticed anything. That's not a husband, that's not a giver, that's not a mashpia. If he were a real mashpia, a real giver, he would be running around, asking everyone in town, my wife is suffering, I don't know what she's suffering from. I'm good to her, what is it? So I don't expect them to figure it out, but you expect them to know there's a problem. Anyway, a mashpia is sensitive. That's number one. And number two, he has the confidence that he can,
It sounds like a one-way relationship.
so far we're talking about one way.
Because it sounds like the girl just exists, and the guy just has to give her, take care of her.
Okay. So that's what a mashpia is. A makabel, a makabel is like a student. What is the nature of a student, or the talent of a student? The talent of being a student is your capacity to receive. To receive means to be completely passive. I mean, it's a little too late now, but if you remember when you were in school, when you're sitting and learning and listening to a teacher, if you're really makabel, there is absolutely nothing going on in your head. Because any activity in your head means you're distracted. To absorb, to receive, to soak up what you're hearing means you're doing nothing else. Most people are pretty shocked when they hear this. If you're sitting in class and your teacher says something, you say, "Wow, that's so smart." You're not a student. You're a critic. You're an editor. You're a censor. Because if you can react by saying, "Wow, there are other things you're going to hear," you're going to say, So if you're filtering what you're hearing, "Oh, I heard that already. Oh, that's new, I never heard that before." You're not listening. You're not a student. You're not a makabel. And if you were lucky enough to have had this experience, even once in your school years, where you just sat there because the teacher was mesmerizing, and you didn't care what the teacher said as long as they keep teaching because you're just soaking it up. It's an amazing experience. So, a real makabel has the ability, the capacity to be totally passive. To be completely surrendered. And it says on the Torah, "Daber ki shemeya avdecha." Speak. All I'm going to do is listen. It is harder to be a student than to be a teacher. Aside from the fact that the student makes the teacher, stimulates. Now, when a man and a woman get married, the dynamic, ideally, the perfect picture. A man is sitting with a woman, and he finds himself feeling really comfortable. Not with her, with himself. He feels natural. He feels confident. He feels at peace. Because this is a woman that he could take care of for the rest of his life. This is called good chemistry. She somehow makes him feel comfortable with himself as a man. And she hasn't done anything yet. She is sitting there, and she is surprised at how comfortable she feels being a woman. With this guy, she's a woman. She doesn't have to prove anything. She doesn't have to say anything. She is just so comfortable. And she's feeling, I would follow him wherever he wants to go and support him in whatever he wants to do. That's a mashpia and a makabel. So if a woman calls me up and says, I'm going out with this guy, he is so fantastic, he's so great, I want to take care of him for the rest of my life. So, forget about it. He wants a wife, not a husband. And if he calls up and says, I'm going out with this girl, she is unbelievable. I'll follow her to the end of the world. Thank you very much. Not a shidduch. So if you're advising people on making the decision of getting married, this should be the main question. If you're talking to a girl, the question is, can you surrender and trust him and just go wherever he wants to go without any concern, without any defensiveness? Well, if he agrees to, forget about it. Forget it. This is not a shidduch. If the woman feels like she needs to make certain conditions, not a husband. He is not a husband to you. You want to make a deal? You want to work out a compromise already? You're not even married yet. So if a guy says, she's so fantastic, I'll follow her anywhere. No. She wants to get married, not adopt a puppy. So when it comes to intimacy, this is where the mashpia and the makabel are most obvious. He has to be mashpia. And she has to be able to simply lose herself, dissolve into the relationship without a worry, without a concern, without a need to protect herself. And if she can't do that, she is so frustrated. Because he's not letting her be a woman. And if a woman can't be a woman, nothing else is going to work. This is devastation. So there's a book that has become very, very popular called The Surrendered Wife. You heard about it?
Yes.
It's amazing that it took 5,000 years and the world finally figured this out. Better late than never.
Not the world, the lady decided to... But
it's so popular. Everybody said, wow, that's what we've been looking for. So, I don't know if everything she says is 100%, but the main principle that a woman wants to be surrendered. She doesn't want to have to check and see if she's safe. So if she doesn't have that absolute security that allows her to just dissolve into the intimacy, it frustrates everything. It's like, in the extreme example, where you have to walk on eggshells all the time because you never know how he's going to react or what he's going to do or if he's going to come home. So all the advice that people have been hearing and people have been giving for years and years and years, it's terrible. Marriage is about compromises. You have to compromise. If that were true, stop getting married. It's not worth it. Marriage involves sacrifice. Really? And you expect people to want to get married? It's terrible. And then, I hate to say this, but Kala teachers and Chassan teachers and Shatchanim with their advice that is just so unnatural. You're going out with this guy, try to be a little more extroverted. Make a few jokes. You want to trick him into marrying you? That is so wrong. On the contrary, just be yourself. Don't even dress up. Go as you are. Oh, he's not going to like me. So, who is he? He's a total stranger. Why are you trying to impress him? Because if he won't marry you, nobody will? What kind of desperation is that? Some advisors say that for their wedding night you should be wearing a certain kind of lingerie. It's like insanity. The way you are is not good. You have to dress up. You have to. This is so disturbing. And so goyish. So, what does it mean to surrender to your husband? The first thing is, it means that you trust him completely. Because if you don't trust, you don't surrender. You can't. You have to protect yourself. So if there's even the slightest insecurity, that's it, it's finished. It's just a long, slow torture, year after year. So in the olden days, getting married was so holy. It was so awesome that if a man married you, this was forever and ever and ever, and you could relax, it's done, you're married, you're home, you can do this with your eyes closed. Why? Because you're married. Today, people don't take marriage that seriously. So the security would have to come not from the holiness of marriage, but from the husband. So in the Maimer that the husband says at the Chasana, it talks about Mashpia and Mekabel. No surprise there. And one of the things that it says is that the Mashpia has to give the Mekabel koyach to be Mekabel. Because it's too scary. It's more difficult to be a student than to be a teacher because the student is more vulnerable. If it fails, the student will be much more devastated than the teacher. More. The teacher will be devastated, otherwise he's not a teacher. So if he teaches for a year and then finds out that his students didn't believe him, didn't hear him, he would be devastated. It's not a job to him. It's his life. When somebody told the Rebbe Rashab's Chassidim that they have to give him feedback. They have to tell him that they understood the Maimer and that they enjoyed the Maimer. And that it would help the Rebbe Rashab's health if he would hear from you. Because this is his whole life. But when the student is devastated, surrendered to the teacher completely, trusted him completely, and just absorbed everything he said, and then it turns out he was lying, or he was insincere, or he was giving bad information, the devastation would be horrendous. So it's harder to be the Mekabel because it demands a much greater vulnerability. But the pleasure, when it is good, is also infinitely greater for the woman than for the man.
How come?
If it's very powerful one way, it's also powerful the other way.
Like Hashem knows taking care of you, like you feel like you could just be yourself and not worry about anything. There's somebody.
And the feeling that you can be yourself, there's nothing greater than that. For a man, it's very hard because a man is always trying to become. He's never quite comfortable being.
Women are expected to be men nowadays, so it's like you have to kind of like balance between work. When you're working, you generally have to perform, and then it's.
So first of all, if a woman goes to work, that means she's becoming masculine?
Well, I'm saying not necessarily, but there's.
Not necessarily,
because.
because...
But it's, I guess that's where the culture comes from, because like you're.
Yeah.
Like you have to, whatever.
Going
dress.
to work doesn't make you masculine, because work is not masculine, which is a scary thing for men to think about. Man goes to work and he has a great career and a great profession. Does that make him a man? No. It has nothing to do with man or woman. It's just a job. So it doesn't make him more of a man. So if a woman goes to work, it's not going to make her into a man.
No.
It doesn't even make him into a man.
But I mean, it's just a perspective that like instead of being vulnerable and open to what happens, you have to like do.
So the woman has to have a job in case the husband quits on her.
No. But
That's what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
You can't rely on your husband. He's going to disappear. What a life that is.
Right, so what is this element of work, as you're saying, that neither makes someone masculine or feminine? What is it then, and why doesn't it?
It's just a need. So in the olden days, men would sit and learn all day, and the women would work. So what made them masculine?
No, but I think that also she was saying that when you do go to work and then you have this, like, I have to accomplish, I have to get higher and higher and higher, it kind of makes you feel like that man feeling, you know,
Yeah,
like that ambition,
you
and,
feel like-
and I need a raise, and I need to
Yeah,
grow
so-
But then
myself.
also you're also like.
So I'm
single
saying
girls
it
are
doesn't even
encouraged
work
to-
for men, never mind for women.
No, girls also like you're encouraged to like be independent, like take care of yourself or whatever. All of a sudden, like what are you doing here? Like, I got this.
Yep. That's why the worst thing you can say to your husband, huh? What is the worst thing you can say to your husband?
You don't need your money, you read Hebrew, that worse than me, you,
I make money more than
right, so he can't fulfill his role of being needed and
You know, it's okay, I'm good. I'm good.
The worst sentence? Never mind, I did it myself. You can't imagine how devastating that is to a husband.
No, but it's almost like while you're single, it's encouraged. Because like you don't want to be needy, you want to be like, you know, you grow up, be independent.
A wife is not needy. Being feminine and being the receiver is not needy.
It's a vacuum going on.
Whoa. Vacuum is what makes the world go round. It's not needy.
Open.
Okay, so let's get around to the mikveh business. in the intimacy of modern times, and tragically, even in frum families, even in families that don't speak English, this unholy attitude has crept in to every bedroom. What's happening is that instead of being intimate, husband and wife enjoy doing things together. Doing things. He's not a mashpia and she is not a makabel. They're two kids playing. He has no sense of giving. She has no sense of receiving. It reduces both of them to animals. Part of it is because of this mishigas with equality, that women want exactly the same thing men want, which means the man can't give her. She has to give him just as much. And he has to receive from her just... So marriage is a 50-50 partnership. You know what that means? That he is a half man and she's a half woman. It's totally insane, it's vulgar, and it's destructive. There's no mashpia, there's no makabel. Or, worse, it turns around. He becomes the makabel, she has to be the mashpia. How frustrating that is for both of them is indescribable.
So what happens in that case?
And they don't even know what's wrong. They're both being nice. What's wrong? And they're living in hell. They're tortured souls. The husband, in the olden days, opens the door for his wife. The feminists come and say, "What, do you think I can't open a door? Get out of the way. Open my own door." Nobody ever thought that you can't open a door. Nobody thinks you can't open a jar or a can. Okay, you can't parallel park. All right, there's certain things. But nobody thinks you're incapable. A man feels wonderful when he can do something for his wife. Not because she can't. We've taken that away. A man comes and he says, problem in our marriage. Look, I do whatever I'm supposed to do. But she doesn't do her part, so talk to her. I don't need any help. She. That's not a mashpia. A mashpia means whatever is going on, it's my responsibility. There's no such thing, I did my part. Everything is your part. You're the mashpia. So if she is not makabel, well, duh. Get her to be makabel. It's like this frustrating thing where you send your kid to a yeshiva, and they send the kid back and say, he's not a learner. What do you think I'm paying you for? What do you mean he's not a learner? You're a yeshiva. Get him to learn. No, that's not our job. Well, what is your job?
You can't make people do anything. If a kid can't, it's manipulation.
All right, so as long as we're off the topic anyway, how do you get a kid to learn?
Make it interesting. Make it interesting.
What does that mean?
Get to know him.
No, but teach them to their level.
What does that mean?
Teach them that they can
Teach
understand
them
what
wire,
you're
I got to
saying.
wire it to his brain, not like the.
Meaning, figure out what he needs to know and he'll love you.
For your new language, create a need.
Reveal the need.
He already has a need.
Because it's
Yes.
created already.
Yes. What, is that rocket science? You can't figure out how to teach a kid? So,
It's a bit,
huh?
it's a bit, it's open to whatever the kid.
Making it sound real simple.
You're not there to cover ground, you're not there for anything else, just to.
But, you know, in a little bit of an excuse we can give the teachers, they're hired to do a job. You got to cover this much material.
Right.
Material of what?
That
Who-
nobody wants.
Yeah,
You
who
only cover
asked
around
for
the
this?
cemetery.
Who cares? Anyway, so in the intimacy, there's a huge, huge difference between what is truly intimate, true meaning natural intimacy, and what has become this fabricated Hollywood production called sex. So the first time this Hasidic young man calls me and says, our marriage is good in every other area, but the sex is not so good. I'd never heard that word used by a Lubavitcher. In fact, the whole mikveh, all the mikveh programs, and Rabbi Chalikov never allowed the use of that word. You can't use that word. And people thought he was, a little old-fashioned, a little uptight, You want to tell people about mikveh, you got to tell them that for 2 weeks you're not allowed to, what? Use the word, people know what you're saying. It turns out that he was very right. That word has nothing to do with what goes on in the bedroom. It's the wrong word. So when this guy said, everything's good except the sex, I said, you're having sex with your own wife? You're disgusting. Intimacy is not about sex. Intimacy is about us, not about something we do. That's so vulgar and so impersonal. So when you say that for 2 weeks out of the month, you're separated. From what? From what? From who? We're separated from each other. So that during the 2 weeks that we are together, we have each other, not good sex. That's not only goyish. It's not true for goyim either. So what does intimacy mean? Intimacy means I can surrender completely and just be you. That way, we become one. Not we do something together. That doesn't make you one. So the Torah says, a man should leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. What for? To become one. Because mashpia without mekabel is not good, and mekabel without mashpia is too painful. Together, you become one whole being. That's why two men can't be married. They can have sex. They can't be married because they don't become one. One means when you give completely and you are received completely, you can't tell where the mashpia begins and ends or where the makabel begins and ends. They literally become one. And then you are bonded like Siamese twins. What is mikveh? When a woman is not in the best mikabel mood, there can be no oneness. That's mikveh. When the body is giving out instead of taking in, then you have too mashpiyim. It's going to create chaos. So people in the secular, the anti-Semites, it's all a put down of women. It's a put down of women? That there cannot be any intimacy unless the woman is perfectly ready. That's a put down of women. That the woman's body dictates the entire relationship. That's a put down of women? So what does the mikveh say? Mikveh basically says, if you're really a mashpia, you would want to be mashpia when the makabel is makabel. I mean, it's like when you're a mother and you want to teach your child to be a mensch. So when do you teach him to be a mensch? When he's having a tantrum. Who are you talking to? Nobody's listening. Hello? What you're saying is brilliant. But who are you saying it to? The kid has tuned you out. He's not makabel. Stop trying to be mashpia when there's no makabel. That's what mikveh is. When the woman is not makabel, you can't be mashpia. Now, what is a sheitel?
It's the mikveh itself.
Huh?
That's the taras mishpacha. It's going to the mikveh, to the water.
Whatever the effect of the mikveh is, the purpose of it, of separation, coming back together,
I have a question. You said that she's not ready to be a makabel, so that's the biggest compliment to the woman, that you let her, get ready and not be forced upon. But some women don't understand that why 2 whole weeks force us to be separated. You know what I'm saying? So
Well, she can't
maybe she
choose.
feels that she personally is ready.
Like, why can't you choose?
because we're not in touch. It's like the doctor prescribed an antibiotic for 7 days. After 3 days, you feel better. That's it, I don't need it anymore. You don't know. You're not a doctor, right? You do need it until it accomplishes what it's really supposed to accomplish. There are Chinese doctors, traditional Chinese doctors, who say that when a woman is having her period, they should not be intimate. Why? The yin and the yang are not working. Mamish, they're saying the same thing.
Same thing. They have the gift.
You can't receive and put in and take in and put out at the same time. It's too confusing.
Then it's like a week after that also. I'm just saying what people say.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So the question is, who's the expert on this? Because as far as we're concerned, we had no idea of any of this.
Exactly.
So what is a shekel? The hair,
Can I ask one more question about the mikvah? Okay, so when I learned it, the thing that seemed to make sense to me was they said that it was about, tahara, anything that has to do with life, right? Anything that has to do with life has kedusha, and anything that has to do with the absence of life. If somebody touches a tummy body of somebody, that's what makes any situation of tumah, which is the same with the woman, because she has a potential life which has been lost, and therefore, you know, so I don't know, that explanation would make the most sense in terms of tahara, and if the only process to tahara is waiting a week, it's not even that novel. I mean, you see it in the Torah with Pesach Sheni. This is coming objectively just from the situation of viewing the way the Torah sees Tumah and Tara. This is a classic case. I mean,
it's really the same thing.
yeah.
When a woman is being mashpia, it's tameh. It's deadly.
This is like a chayk, there's like one place you can't be intuitive, like it's something like you
Huh?
have to follow Torah. There's one place you can't be intuitive, you just have to follow Torah, because
No, you have to be intuitive.
Don't both people need to be both? Both, like the man and the husband both need to be mashpia and makabel. I'm not talking about intimate part, I'm talking about in regular life. They both need
In
to
different
be giving and
relationships.
taking.
In different relationships. The mother obviously is a mashpia to her children.
Right?
The husband is a makabel to his rebbe. But with each other, the more he is mashpia, the more she is makabel, the better it is.
she's the one making the food, she's the one, like, it's generally the dynamic, generally she's a
Making
nurturer.
food is not masculine, it's not feminine, it's just a job. In fact, the husband and wife should both not make food, they should order out. And it won't harm the marriage at all.
She's
Okay,
saying
in
that
the old-
nurturing is mashpia.
Like,
Huh?
no, nurturing sounds much better, but it's really, it's makabel though, which is interesting. Like, no, like, I'm saying,
Right.
like,
Not being
designing
passive.
and really, like, detailed.
Actually, nurturing is another word for makabel. Nurturing is not giving.
And seeing what's needed, and
Hmm?
seeing what's needed.
Does it make sense?
Make
Nurturing
it sound
doesn't
like we don't
involve...
do anything all day, we're so busy and working so hard.
Like, generally
And you're
the
like
woman-
just receiving. No, I'm just saying how somebody can understand it. I understand what you're saying. I'm just
Like, it
saying-
sounds like the woman, meanwhile, the woman's like busy in the kitchen, she's the one, she's the one generally in the home, she's the one generally expected to like run the house and like raise the kids, meanwhile, the husband's like officially, like,
Husband is?
officially the mashbia, so like, and she's also, like, the woman's expected to go to work, like, also cook the food and also take care of the house and run the house, meanwhile, the husband also goes to work, but she has all those other jobs, she's officially with Makalo. So like I'm saying, how does that
Maybe
play
we need
out?
an explanation of what it really means to be a mashpia and a makabel, because I think it's blurred between everybody, it's a different.
No, like I'm saying practically, like the general, I feel like the general things that a woman and a man do, it's like most of the women nowadays have much more big responsibility than the men. Like it's almost like the woman has to be organized, she has to be one put together, she's the one has to be one grounded, she has to be one also going to work. Meanwhile, he just has to go to work and he's like, and he's, you know.
You're still makabel at the end of the day.
Right,
With
that's
all
the thing.
that, you still get home and you're still makabel.
So how can you be
Probably
passive?
mashpia.
You're
She
so
still,
active.
she still just has to like let him like and say,
Let her be mashpia.
this is another job.
That's his problem.
You know what I'm saying? You do all the work and then you have to like put it all on him and tell him what he's doing.
And make believe you need it.
Yeah, I'm saying like, how do you, like
But you're saying that
Like you're like, you know, how you do it all yourself, and you have to like give them all
No,
the
but
credit.
Rabbi Friedman is saying that this is all practical stuff.
See, you could be passive, but be active. I think that's what I try to realize. It's not about not doing, it's about your feeling. Right. You could be very active.
You know, like in the book, it's the power word, it says, you make the money and then you just rely on him how he spends it. Like, even though you're still working.
That's a Laura Doyle one.
Yeah, but she brings it up.
You make the money and you rely on him to spend it?
No, like to budget or whatever. It's like, even though you make the money, it's all part of what accounting, you just rely on him, like. You know.
That's completely off the topic. Who does the budget or who keeps the checkbook? It's not male, it's not female, it's not mekabel, it's not mashpia. It's just
the
a
general
job.
trust, the concept of trusting, letting.
Trusting is not.
Ideally, let me give you the
Right,
ideal,
right, you're trusting him.
the ideal home, the perfect home. The wife does not cook and she does not wash dishes and she does not do laundry.
No wonder she like Shabbos candles. No wonder she would challah.
What?
That's
So
fine.
say the concept of making challah, the reason why she makes challah is because she's responsible for kashrut. The reason why she likes Shabbos candles is because like one of the reasons is because first of all the light, she's really
Responsible for kashrus means that when the cook, who's not Jewish, comes into your kitchen, you light the fire. You're not the cook. Ideally, no woman should ever have to do laundry, dishes,
So
mopping.
there's no such thing as a Baal Basra. It doesn't exist.
Right.
Pay somebody to do it. Who says you have to do it? So what does a woman do?
They're telling me.
The food that was already cooked by your maid, you bring it to your husband, because that's intimate.
No, but you're giving.
You're nurturing. Nurturing is not what you do. So all this, well, I do more than you do. Neither of you should do it. Pay somebody. Get a cook, get a butler. There's nothing feminine about washing dishes.
Both of you can do it,
Huh?
or both of you can do it.
Yes.
Together.
But the best thing is neither of you do it. Pay somebody. That would be really ideal. Like, for example, there's no better, more powerful, more incredible marriage than the Rebbe and the Rebbitzin. Who cooked? Who washed dishes? The Rebbitzin? Say, well, that's only for royalty. Okay, so let's all be royal. What's wrong with that? The story with the hair is that everybody has energy. There's neutral energy, like simply the ability to run a mile. And then there's masculine energy, and there's feminine energy. By nature, we give off, we transmit our energy. There are people who could actually feel and measure a person's vibration, energy. The hair gives off more energy than the skin, because it grows out. It gives off. Is that energy an intimate energy, or is it a neutral energy? So the Chachamim were actually debating this. And they came to the conclusion that Once a woman is married and she's being intimate, the energy that her hair gives off is a little bit intimate, and it shouldn't be wasted. It shouldn't be given out, it should be kept in. So when you cover your hair, what you're really doing is you're preserving that energy from being dissipated into the air. A silly example of that is a woman who flirts with everybody can't really be intimate with anybody because her energy has been scattered, squandered, it's gone. If you preserve that energy, then when you're intimate, you have the full experience of your intimacy. Like, for example, again, people who don't wear clothes are not good at intimacy. They're not. It's been what is the word? Diffused. That's what tznius basically is all about. Tznius means whatever energy I have that is intimate, I'm keeping it. And then your intimate life. So there was an article in the New York Post recently. They did this study, 9,000 people they studied, and they came to the conclusion, traditional married women are much happier than a secular successful woman. And their intimacy is infinitely better. So if you think about what they call the freewheeling open society where you hook up and you have sex with this one, with that one, there's nothing, it's not satisfying. It's shallow, it's pathetic, it's... A married woman whose energy is reserved for her intimate life has an intimate life.
So your hair has such powerful energy that it can't be spread even to your husband, it just has to...
It's not, see, your husband benefits from it, but not through the hair.
Not through seeing it.
Not through seeing the hair. The fact that you preserve that energy, you now share that energy with him.
You don't share it because it's just covered away.
When you're being intimate, you're sharing it.
Isn't your hair covered?
Huh? No, not the hair, the energy. Not sharing the hair. You don't have to share hair. You have to share intimacy. So those intimate pleasures are much more intense because you didn't squander it.
Is a woman supposed to cover her hair during intimacy or not?
No.
She is? So then, how does that make sense? What you just said.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm just trying to understand.
If you uncover your hair, some of that energy goes into the room, not into your relationship.
But if it stays on her head covered.
In other words, you can either internalize it or externalize it. So if you uncover your hair, you're externalizing it.
Fascinating. You ever heard anything like that?
Never heard
this.
it.
I've heard
Never
that,
heard
but
this.
I was with a group of women and we were listening to someone speak and she said that and everyone's mouths dropped to the floor like...
No, I always heard it was
I'm
like
no,
Gura
Kyle
and
teachers
Gura.
told
It was
me
like
that.
Gura and
Like,
Gura.
no one heard that, but she was so...
If you want,
Darkness.
if you want to boil a pot of water, right? If you want to boil a pot of water, you put a cover on it. Why? Because you don't want to heat up the room. You want to boil the water. If you don't put a cover on it, you're heating up the room. It'll take longer for the water to boil because half the heat is going into the room. When you cover it, the water gets all the heat.
But your husband never sees your hair, it's just covered.
You don't need to see the hair, you have to feel the heat.
so the heat is preserved inside of you instead of going outside of you?
I think
So when-
nobody knows that. I mean, I'm not being like generalizing, but I don't think many people know that.
I know.
Hair should be covered. Always, like that means always.
Oh. Yeah, so when people say, we're what is it called? We're reserving our hair for our husbands,
Right, so they say that all the time, they say that you could show your husband, right,
I'm saving it for my husband.
saving your hair to show your husband.
But it
They
can't
all
be shown
say-
anyway.
Right, but he's saying it's wrong to say that.
Say
Right.
your because then the will all see it too.
Right, and they say, why do we cover our hair? Because now you're taken or something. No, it's not, it's because of this, because it's ever, it's different now,
So-
whatever.
So in a
But
sense,
people, I was with people and everyone was
Listen to
so
this, listen
shocked.
to
They're
this.
like, ever, never, and never.
In a
it says that.
sense-
Everyone was so shocked.
it's the same thing, a man takes off his yarmulke when he's being intimate?
No, they said he has to wear yarmulke too.
Why
But
not?
he wears yarmulke for your
It's different
shemai.
reasons.
Yes, but why are you so surprised that a woman doesn't take off her tichel? He doesn't take off his yarmulke.
Because that's what they taught us all the time.
But
That
I
you
never
do?
grew up,
You
I
could
don't
only
grow up
show
wearing
it to your
yarmulke.
husband.
So,
This gorgeous hair that you have.
right?
Your husband.
Not
He'll-
everybody has gorgeous hair.
He'll be so grateful.
So that's why it took so long, because they tell so many girls, now you go ahead and shots with this.
So listen.
He's not even saying it either.
Listen,
So
In
something
the
has to be
end-
the right way, the right cut.
in the
So the people
end,
that shave up all their hair, there's nothing wrong with it because their energy's all the way inside and
There
there's
must
no
be some good
possibility
reason
of
behind
leaving
that.
their
But there's no energy because there's no energy.
Right, but then there's no energy.
Well,
They don't leave it.
But they have the roots inside their brain, I don't know.
Well, it's in
Lots
their
of
brain.
sense.
then.
Listen.
Lots of sense.
listen, in the end, it is for your husband.
Right.
You see?
So even if
But
they
not-
shave up all their hair, the
No,
power
no,
of the
no.
hair.
It ultimately is for the husband because he is the one who benefits, not by seeing your hair.
Right.
By not seeing your hair. By you preserving yourself and preserving the woman's hair.
The energy that would otherwise have been lost, he gets to enjoy. Because it's intimate. It's not external, it's internal.
It's like a secret.
So until a woman is married, which is kind of strange, until she's married, the hair is not wasteful. But once she's married, it is.
Is this halacha to cover your hair during intimacy?
Sure.
I've never heard it until tonight.
Huh?
I've never heard it until tonight, just putting it out there, and I'm sure
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
went
people
to
don't
a
know
talk
about this.
also not long ago, and I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
And everyone was around the table.
But intimacy is when you're, only when you're
And there's
together.
older women and younger women, everyone was like,
Yeah.
it's
See,
not what
the
people
funny,
are
the
taught.
funny thing is that frum people say, "I'm saving my hair for my husband." Your husband never gets to see it because it's in the dark. Thank you very much. You can look at my hair now. Yeah, but the lights are off. The lights are off? I get that reaction also. What, the lights have to be off? We are so... Why do the lights have to be off?
Protect the woman.
Hmm? To protect her?
I don't know.
No, she feels secure, she's the become.
No, really, why do the lights have to be off?
That's not my.
It's not about just her. It's about.
No. It's just about her,
Again.
not about her look.
Right, yes.
That's the point of the lights being off. Lights are off means we're going to just be us. We're not going to be doing things, so what do you need the lights on for? The lights on is basically pornography. Until pornography became popular, nobody had lights on. It was a normal thing that you're intimate, you turn the light off. By non-Jews. This crazy thing with the lights, that's only from pornography. So lights off is so powerful. I mean, I say this on interviews, on podcasts, and on whatever what I call to non-Jews, and they're like, wow, don't see anything, don't hear anything, and don't say anything. Boy, that's intimate. Yeah, hello. Good morning. The bottom line, in terms of the chachma of Torah, the worst thing, it's not an exaggeration, the worst feeling that a person can experience is the feeling that you're alone in the world. Nobody can survive that feeling. How are you not alone in the world if you're married? Until you're married, you are alone in the world. And that's what the Torah is telling us. Therefore, a man should leave his mother and father. Why does that have to be said? Therefore, a man should leave his mother and father, cleave to his wife, and become one. No, I'm one with my mother and father. Nope. The fact that you have a mother and father, you're still alone in the world. You're well taken care of, but you're alone. You don't stop being alone until you're married. Because when you're married, you become one. You're not one with your mother. You're not. Even if you're her favorite. And you're not one with your father. For a very simple reason. They have each other. You're not one, you're three. You're not one with your children. The only relationship in which you are one is marriage. So the cure to being alone is intimacy. Because if you're married without intimacy, you're alone. You're married and you're alone. It's devastating. For a long time, since the 60s, I think, 1960, people have been saying, we're a very lonely generation. We're very outgoing, we travel, we have friends, and we're so lonely. When a married couple, who are happily married, and yet they each feel alone in the world, this is dangerous. And why is that? Because they're not intimate with each other. They just do stuff. That's not called intimate. They don't surrender to each other. They use each other for what they need. And they're getting what they need. They think they're happy. So again, on the one hand, you say, laws of mikveh, it's you can't understand it. You just have to accept it, Covering the hair, there's no explanation. It's just one of those things. Torah says, that's it. That's a nice attitude of trust and innocence. But to say there's no reason and you can't understand? It all is perfectly natural and logical and sensible and smart. It's just amazing how the Chachamim, ancient rabbis, were way ahead of us in understanding the facts of life and reality. We're just trying to catch up to them.
I realizing that, you say about a person's aura. It's a very sensitive thing. Most people don't walk around seeing auras. It does not negate the fact that they exist. It's just so interesting because it's hard to even understand and tap into what you're speaking about, what they hear about. When you think of an aura, it seems more relatable, but it sounds very similar in concept.
Yeah, you call it aura, and there it sounds like woo. But you sit with a person, you pick up a feeling. There's nothing mysterious about that. So, why a shaitel? A shaitel does two things. It keeps the inside in. What has to remain inside stays in. And what should be out comes out. What should be out? Beauty.
Interesting. But isn't Techels could also be beautiful? There's very beautiful Techels and
Fine.
like the way they're situations, the way they like.
Yeah, amazing. So the question of what's the point of wearing a shaitel? It looks better than your hair. That's the point.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. There's no virtue in being ugly. So covering your hair was not meant to make you less beautiful. That's nasty. That's distasteful. Beauty is not private. Beauty is meant for the eyes of the beholder. What's the point of something beautiful if you won't show it? We're not afraid of beauty. So what the shaitel does is two things at the same time. What's private, intimate, and should be reserved is being reserved by wearing a shaitel, and what's supposed to be external and visible is improved. It's perfect. So those frummies who say, no, shaitel looks too good. Well, you don't know what good looking means, you don't know what intimate means, you don't know what a woman is, you're just completely off.
You touched on the subject of tznius before, and I'm just wondering if there's some correlation between the lack of tznius here and the ones who don't go to mikvah. Is there some kind of, do you think if they would be more careful with their tznius, they'd be more inclined to go to mikvah, or it has nothing to do with each other?
I think they're both symptoms of a third problem.
Which?
We don't understand what intimacy means, or we don't understand what being a woman is all about. The result is mikveh, no. Shaitel, no. Tznius, no. Why? Because why should I be any different than a man?
Do you think that's the thought process? It's not just like, I want to be attracted to every man out there, or I just want to be comfortable, why do I have to be dressed like this,
Which means, I don't know what it means to be a woman. If I wanted to be a woman, I would love the tznius, because it works for being a woman. I don't know what it means to be a woman, so just leave me alone. That's like...
So a woman allows you to be beautiful in the way that a woman can be, and then like in the best way we were created to be beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're acting ourselves and being ourselves.
It's like, the Miss Israel came for dollars. You can imagine becoming Miss Israel is not the most tznius activities in the world. You can, what would a very frum person's reaction be when he hears that the Rebbe spoke to her and gave her $1, didn't throw her out.
Did the Rebbe even know the concept of a Miss Israel pageant?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Okay.
introduced her as this is Miss.
Did the Rebbe know
Never
what
watched
it
the
entailed to become Miss Israel?
What do you think?
No, he doesn't watch TV. He didn't watch TV.
Whoever discussed, like.
If the Rebbe doesn't know what Miss Israel is, we shouldn't be here.
Exactly. What does the Rebbe not
We
know?
gotta move to
Bikini,
Flatbush.
Whatever, anyway. I don't know.
No, the Rebbe, like, I don't know how the Rebbe knew these things, but apparently the Rebbe did know a lot. It's like, the Rebbe-
A lot?
No, the Rebbe knew, like, I'm saying people discuss random stuff.
Actually, you're right. I think you're right. The Rebbe had no idea. The Rebbe heard she is the most beautiful woman in Israel. And what was his reaction?
Beauty's in the eyes of the
Good for you. Beautiful. Beauty, can lead to... Who says? Who says beauty leads to bad things? You're so confused, right?
For a man, because then a man might tempt a man and it might get them aroused.
So
and then-
what did the Rebbe say to her? Sheker hachein v'hevel hayefi. That's only if you're not Yiras Hashem. If you are Yiras Hashem, then the beauty is wonderful and the chen is wonderful. And you should be praised for it. Isha Yiras Hashem, he tishalo. We all think it means you should praise her for being Yiras Shamayim. No! You don't get praise. You get praised for your beauty. If your beauty has a little Yiras Shamayim to it, which means you don't mix it with intimacy. If you don't confuse beauty with intimacy, you're perfect. And you should be praised for your good looks. This is always a little controversial. People don't like to hear this. If you're healthy, and you are married in a healthy, wholesome, Torah-dike way, and your husband comes home and he says, I just hired a secretary. You got to see this lady. She is gorgeous.
Uh-oh.
Is the wife threatened?
Oh, if
She's
they're
a
in healthy
normal lady.
relationship.
Huh?
But why is the guy staring at a woman and seeing how beautiful the woman is if he has
Because
her?
she's beautiful.
Yeah, he has no.
What, should you make believe she's not?
No, he's just not. He has his woman. He doesn't need another one.
Oh, so he shouldn't see anything beautiful.
You should notice it.
He
has
shouldn't
his
notice?
wife.
She definitely
No, he
has
has
a
like she's taken. She doesn't need anybody else. She's good.
She what?
She's good.
Who's good?
The lady.
His wife?
Which lady are you talking about?
No, I see your point though. Like this.
Why is the wife threatened that there's a beautiful woman in the world? What does it have to do with her marriage with her
Man asked
husband?
that question.
Huh?
Yeah, men are fickle.
No.
Whoa. Keep him on a leash.
So basically, your voice, like
It's
a woman's
obvious.
voice is intimacy, and a woman's looks is beauty.
Yeah. That's why if she is a professional singer, she's allowed. Because then it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful performance. The Rebbe never discouraged a professional singer.
No, but it always says only for women and like trying to.
That's
Yeah, collation.
We didn't.
That's
hear
the
answer about
confusion.
the beautiful secretary.
yes.
The one in question.
That's very
The wife-
interesting.
The wife should not be threatened at all.
Because she's not married.
She has a marriage, not a beauty contest.
Okay,
So-
but practically speaking.
So a professional
Say, get rid of her.
professional singer could sell her music.
She
to
gotta
men.
die.
No, but what's the
And
no,
what
so
if
why
it was
can't
reversed? And what if the woman came home and said, you have to see my
Exactly.
new assistant, he's gorgeous.
Handsome.
What if?
Let's not get into the gender confusion problem here.
no? He's I keep
Yeah,
my
same
dad-
thing, the same thing. See, in the secular world,
light bulbs, like.
in,
I got my mat at work too, like.
in the secular world, you marry the person that you think is the most beautiful. And if somebody shows up more beautiful, your whole marriage is in crisis. But we don't do that. We don't say, I want to marry you, the most beautiful woman in the world.
But it's not in crisis because of that, it's in crisis because now there's temptation.
Right.
It's not
What?
because
There's
of
no
the beautiful.
temptation.
There'll be no temptation.
A man has a lot of temptation. We know that a man's desire is women, and a woman's desire is lack of tzniut, right? We learned that growing up. So the problem here is not the beauty that we're jealous, it's a man has a big yitzhara, and he wants, it happens, we don't, well, it happens a lot, very often.
And the reason it
Very
happens,
close circles.
and the reason it happens is because women are beautiful.
Basically, we were brainwashed. As a
No,
child, I was
no,
brainwashed
it's
to
not.
see it. So we're
That's
close
not
to
It says clearly,
And they kind of
you don't
themselves.
agree with it.
Again, you see, if you confuse beauty with intimacy, then you're right.
No, I grew up like men are scary, men are animals, so you better be careful.
I didn't come here to be abused.
No, they have an animalistic nature, so be careful.
Animalistic nature.
So even a tzaddik that still gets married. I don't know. That's what I understand.
Oh
There's
my
literally
goodness.
stories in the Gemara where the rabbis
hear
had
you,
to be two
exactly.
people so that when they're passed by the prostitute
Oh,
house, they have to be Rabbi
I grew up
Yochanan ben
Chabad.
Zakkai and one more other rabbi to be strong together to resist the temptation. So of course, there is
Because
a
a-
temptation
Because a
with
prostitute
women.
is beautiful?
No, but there was a woman, there was a
There
female,
was-
there was another, the opposite attraction,
A
there's a
woman,
magnet,
a
there's
woman.
something going on.
Wait, so
No,
the
a
point
prostitute.
Okay.
Okay, so, there should, the Kavachomer, they shouldn't
A
be tempted
prostitute
if it's
is
a prostitute.
available, a
They should
prostitute
be
is
even
there for
worse.
one reason.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But not every beautiful woman is a prostitute.
Right.
What is this?
What's prostitute?
But that makes the point even stronger.
How?
If it's a prostitute and they're so low, and these rabbis shouldn't even be affected by it, why did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai have to walk? I don't know who the other rabbi is, they have to walk together so that they wouldn't get tempted.
No, he's saying that they're not about beauty, they're all about just intimacy. So, it's a different type of woman.
Right, but this woman
And
is
also-
the secretary we're bringing up.
and
That's
al-
nothing, you're bringing up the secretary.
Oh,
you're
a
not
secretary is
bringing
a
up the wife.
prostitute.
No, but you're bringing up a superficial beauty. That's what you brought up right now. You said
What does superficial mean?
It's all skin.
not an intimate type of beauty.
Exactly.
This husband is connected with
Right.
his wife so
So-
strongly. If you're saying he's not going to get tempted, he's
No,
still
no,
going to get
one second.
tempted.
Why can't
Super-
a man listen to Story Love?
Hang on.
Like, why
Super-
That's not a good example, the secretary is a
Secretary, like,
you know, you're
real
walking down the
self-
street.
Hang on,
no,
hang on.
Why can't a man
Hang on a second.
Exactly.
Hang on a second. Superficial beauty is like a redundancy.
Because people
Beauty
have
is
skin
superficial. It's
exactly.
supposed to be.
I mean, sometimes it comes from inside, so not always.
It's a different kind of beauty.
Okay.
But beauty is meant to be on the surface.
Right.
Don't
So
hide-
being attracted to somebody and being beautiful is very different things.
Exactly.
Beauty is different for everybody. Everybody sees beauty in a different way.
Right, no, attraction and beauty, like this.
Yes,
still
two
say it's
completely
beautiful,
different
but not
things.
necessarily attractive.
Right. So a sheitel can be beautiful, but hair is attractive.
But you have to cover your hair for your husband to see
Always remember that.
Even discovered attractive.
So look at how low
So your
we have
voice is
fallen
also attractive.
that we're afraid of beauty. We're that confused. That's Hollywood. It's not real, it's not true, it's not natural.
So a man is attracted to anyone besides for his wife, that's scary? So I'm saying
If he's sexually attracted,
like I'm saying, a man, like let's say, I don't know, you would generally think that if a man is generally, like if their marriage is going, hopefully if their marriage is going well, they shouldn't be attracted to anybody else. But if they are, that's, so basically there's some beautiful woman, but there's no other attractive woman besides for his wife.
okay, so look, a guy comes home and he says, I hired a secretary She is so efficient.
Okay.
Threatening?
Efficient is
No.
different.
Why not?
No, because she.
She's more
it's
efficient
a
than you.
characteristic
My
that you're
interest is
describing.
if she doesn't have.
Ah,
Efficient is
he's
great.
getting attracted to her.
No,
No,
efficient
but
is
also there's a
efficient.
concept of also if it's a 50-year-old man and he has a 50-year-old wife who's, you know, she's gained some pounds, she started looking older, and then he hires a 20, 25-year-old secretary who's, you know,
First efficient,
perky and
very
cute
efficient, and
and,
then what else?
you know, this.
In other words, she's a prostitute. If she's cute, then she's a prostitute.
No, not at all. But, you know, it's, you know,
He will
there's a
get,
comparison. There
he
could
can
be
get attracted, men can get attracted even if it's not their wives.
But also
It's not
if you
they're
go-
gonna go
So
They
one,
walk
so
for
one, so
it.
one second.
Today,
What-
you walk on the street.
What,
there's
what are we
nothing
trying to do?
special.
The guy is married to a droopy,
No, but
Wait, and-
age, I mean, that's what happens.
right.
Okay?
So he should really believe that his wife is prettier than the 20-year-old
Be
secretary.
better.
He better believe that.
Exactly. He better.
Or like a 35-year-old can't get married to a 35-year-old. He has to get married to a 20-year-old because like they don't because a 20-year-old because it's a 20-year-old is prettier than a 35-year-old.
No. A 35-year-old marries a 20-year-old because he needs to be a little smarter than her. Otherwise, she doesn't need him. So you see, if things were normal, if things were as they should be, there's no competition, there's no danger. You don't have to play this silly game. No, you're the prettiest in the whole world. What? We are one. She is pretty. So what?
There's not many situations like that are so
Because-
perfect that nothing will
Yes, because we're so confused on the subject.
But it's also where the man's head is at. Is he like really focused? Is he a learner? That all really matters is what is in the man's mind.
No, but a woman also. You walk down the street. I don't think it's possible for a man to close his eyes when he walks anywhere.
Why does he need to close his eyes?
But he sees things that are attractive, not just beautiful. He sees women that are not properly dressed. That's attractive, I guess.
True.
So then, how is he supposed to be attracted to his wife? If he's seeing attractive things all day.
So what should a man do? Walk with his eyes closed?
Yeah. Or maybe his intimacy should be so great that should be greater than the intimacy he sees walking in the street.
Of
It's not
course.
that great. You're not talking about
course.
they're chasing the guy.